Hey guys, it's Molly and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my April reads. So this is every book that I read in April. I read 12 books last month, so let's get into it. First, The Holy Grail. We read Keeping 13, which is the second book in the Boys of Tommen series. I read the first book last month and I talked about it. That was a 5-star read for me. This was also a 5-star read for me. This was probably a bit of a higher than the last book, I feel like, because the first one was a little bit harder to get into just because it is like the start of the series and it's not a fantasy book, but it is kind of world building because there's so many different characters, there's so much like happening, so much going on. It's also a different country, like this is based in Ireland. So you're kind of like learning like lingo and like different things to do with the universe that they're living in. So the first book was a little bit harder for me to get through, but this one I flew through. I read in literally like I think 2 days, and the first one took me a little bit longer. And I loved this one so much. If you don't know what the Boys of Tommen is, it's basically a Irish rugby romance like series, and it's based on a bunch of boys of Tommen. And it's based like in a school called Tommen College in Cork, Ireland. I studied abroad in Ireland like this past spring. I literally came home like a month ago from this experience, and it was so fun. I love Ireland, and these books make me miss Ireland so much because of the kind of like the way that they speak, and just like the things that happen in these books remind me so much of my time in Ireland. And I think that's another reason why I love these books so much, is because they're so like reminiscent of all my friends in Ireland and all the experiences that me and my friends have had. And I just love these books so much. So this is the second book in the series, like I said, and this is the second and last of Johnny and Shannon's books, at least for right now. I have heard that they're getting like, because the series is still continuing, so I've heard that Chloe, who is the writer, she's gonna write them another book like further on into the series, like their future, kind of like when they're have kids, married, whatever, like their future kind of like time they're gonna get a book, or like at least a novella or something. But I love this book so much, like I said, and I gave it 5 stars, and this whole universe, whole series is so good. And then I already bought the second book, or the third book, which is Saving Six, which is Joey, who is Shannon's older brother, and then Alfie, who's like Joey's girlfriend. So that is the first book. I talked so much about that one for no reason. Next, we have Cover Story. This is by Susan Ragetti. I also read this like really fast. I really liked this one. I think it was like really interesting, really fast paced. This is basically, if you don't know, the Anna Delvey story. The Anna Delvey story was about Anna Delvey, who back in like 2016, I think, she basically swindled all of the New York elite out of their money, and she girl bossed her way to the top. Like, she really just went for it, and she posed as a German heiress and basically just took a bunch of people's money and like committed a bunch of bank fraud and money fraud and like laundering, and it was crazy. And this book is basically that. It's about this girl Kat, and then she works at Elle, and she meets this other girl, Nora, I think is her name. Laura. The same thing. Laura. And Laura starts ghostwriting for Kat, and then just a bunch of stuff happens, and it's so good, and the ending was crazy, and I literally kept thinking about it for like a week. I think this was a 4.5 stars for me. Yep, this was a 4.5 stars. Next, I read Shatter Me. This is the first book in the Shatter Me series. I was not a huge fan of this book. I really did like the romance in it, but everything else, especially the main character, I think her name was Juliet, I didn't like that much. I don't know. I think I've been considering continuing the series just because of how much I like Aaron, who is like the main guy, and I love Aaron and Juliet's kind of like interacting, and I feel like it's gonna get better because I think in this one it was just very like woe is me, because she kind of just like went through a lot of stuff in this book and she had like no hope, and then finally she found hope. So I think the rest of the books are going to be a little bit better and like not as like my life sucks kind of thing. But if you don't know what Shatter Me is about, sorry, I have like so much phlegm in my throat. Shatter Me is about this girl named Julia. She basically has like a deadly touch, like it like kills or hurts people, and this is based kind of like in a dystopian future. The earth is like barren, there's not really a lot going on the earth. There's not a lot going on. I say it like, not a lot going on. Anyways, and so she is kind of like captured by the other side, who are people who are like promising that they're gonna save the earth, but they're not, they're lying. And she gets taken out of her home. I think she was like 15 when she got taken away. She gets put in an insane asylum, and then Aaron comes and like saves her, but he's a part of the other side. It's so good and I loved Aaron. But I gave this book 2.5 stars. I think I'm gonna continue the rest of the series, but I'm not 100% sure yet, so I don't know. Also, I did not know she wrote This Woven Kingdom. Like, I had no idea. Okay, next is Magnolia Parks. Actually, I don't know if I read this next. Did I read this next? Okay, yeah, I read Magnolia Parks next. If you haven't been living under a rock, I feel like this is another book that has kind of taken TikTok by storm. It's been like kind of all over TikTok for a while. I'd say about a year now. But I think now is kind of when it's starting to not really get its popularity, but I feel like a lot more people are starting to talk about it than I've seen before. Like certain people I didn't even know read it are talking about it, and I'm like, whoa, like, and everybody loves it. And this has been on my TBR for literally forever, but I just never saw it anywhere. And then it went on Kindle Unlimited, I think in January maybe. And I started reading it on Kindle originally, and then when I came home, I got the physical copy, which literally the physical copy is so fun. The cover is beautiful, and then also has these like pictures on the back that are supposed to be BJ and Magnolia. But if you don't know what Magnolia Parks is about, it is basically Gossip Girl dupe. Like, it is about BJ and Magnolia. There's also a toxicity, like kind of cheating trope in this. Like, they are kind of a toxic relationship. My back hurts so much. I'm wearing jeans right now, so it's not super comfortable sitting down. But anyways, so basically Magnolia and BJ, they've known each other since they were little. Well, since they were like 15. And they just, honestly, they're just so codependent of each other. They love each other, but they also just hurt each other so much. And stuff happened in the past that BJ did to Magnolia, and then Magnolia kind of like gets back at him, and they just like constantly do these things to kind of like spite each other, but they're always come back to each other, and it's just crazy. It's so good. I think the only like issues that people have with this book is kind of that it's like toxic. And I think if you go into this book thinking about the toxicity and thinking about the drama, you are already kind of like in that mindset. I did not read this all in one sitting. I read it like very sparsely. I wish I read it in one sitting instead of just reading it sparsely, because I feel like that lowered my rating for it, because I didn't really get the full bandwidth of emotions. I might reread it. I don't know. But I gave this book 4.5 stars, so pretty close to a 5. Oh my gosh, sorry, I'm literally gonna have to unbutton my pants because my back hurts so bad. Sorry. That feels so much better. I'm like sitting and wearing jeans and it's so uncomfortable. Okay, next I read The Brutal Prince. This is the first book in the Brutal Birthright series, and I read the second book too. I read these like separately, like kind of like sparsed in between different books. But the Brutal Birthright series is a kind of like a mafia romance, and each one is like a different couple, obviously. And so the first one is The first one is Callum Griffin and Ada Gallo, and they are from like rivaling families, and this is based in Chicago. So it's like kind of like mafia, and every mafia is like, they're kind of like different ethnicities. So Ada is from the Italian mafia people, whatever, and Callum is the Irish. Go Irish. And they basically have an arranged marriage because of something that happened between the families that's kind of Ada and Callum's fault. So to kind of like pay for that debt, they get married, and it's a forced marriage or arranged marriage, forced proximity, enemies to lovers, and like mafia dark romance, and it is so spicy and so good. I think I gave this 3.5 stars. Yeah, I gave this 3.5 stars. And then the second one is The Stolen Heir. I liked this a little bit more than the other one just because, again, I think for me when I'm reading series, the second one is always I like a little bit more because I'm more like into the world and I know what I'm expecting. So I gave this one 4 stars. And this is Nessa Griffin, and I also loved Nessa. And she's the little sister of Callum, and then this is a modern retelling of Beauty and the Beast. She gets kidnapped by Mikołaj, I don't remember his last name, Mikołaj Wilk, and he is with the Polish mafia, and he kidnaps her to kind of like pay a debt that happens in the first book with his family and the Callums and the Griffins, or the Griffins and the Gallos, like kind of like paying their debt. And yeah, it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so it's like forced proximity, enemies to lovers, kind of Stockholm syndrome, falling in love with the enemy kind of thing, and it's so good. And they like, I love the mafia, like, because there's like kind of like mafia subplots in it, and it like talks about there's a lot of violence, but it's just like really interesting and fun, and I love it. Okay, next I read a book on my Kindle. I don't remember who it was by, but it's Iced Out. It's basically a boy hockey college romance, enemies to lovers. That's basically like the whole premise of it. Just kidding. Basically these two guys, I don't remember their names. Sorry. I read this like forever ago. I really did like it. I just don't remember a lot about the story, but they basically have played hockey against each other since high school, and then they end up on the same college team. One of the guys becomes the captain, the other one's just on the team. Things happen, they end up like hooking up, whatever. It's like an enemies to lovers sports romance. It's fun, it's cute, it's spicy, we love it. I give that 4 stars. Next, I read Killjoy. This is the novella in the Good Girls Guide to Murder series, which is Good Girls Guide to Murder is a YA murder mystery, and it's basically about a girl who decides to solve a murder in her town for her senior capstone project. So this is like the prequel novella, and this just happens like before all of the books start. And this is Pip, her and her friends all have a murder mystery party. I really liked this because in the novella it just kind of like sets the stone for all the books. So honestly, like, I think this just came out, but if you haven't read the series yet, I recommend reading this first and then reading the rest of the series, because having already read this series and then reading this, it was so cool because it like, you already know the characters a little bit, and so it's like giving you like before everything else happened. I also didn't know when this took place until I started reading it, and then I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because if you read the last book, you know, like, I was like, this doesn't make sense if this is like after everything, because if you know, you know, like, it just wouldn't make any sense. The next book I read was If He Had Been With Me. This was so disappointing to me. It was so disappointing. It was not as sad as I thought it was gonna be, and I think it's because the ending just wasn't what I wanted it to be. I think it would have been so much more impactful if it was just a little bit different, if she just did things like Autumn did things a little bit different. It just felt very rushed and very just, it just felt like a cop-out. Like, the way that it was written just felt like the author just ran out of time and was like, oh, and just threw this thing in, and I was like, I didn't like that. Like, I did not like that. So yeah, but up until then I really liked this book, and I really liked that it just kind of like them through high school. So basically this is about Autumn and Finn. They grow up as childhood best friends. Their moms are best friends. They grow up living next door to each other in houses, obviously in houses. I don't know why I said that. um then up until middle school they kind of like end up getting different friends, being in different friend groups, and they're not really friends anymore. And they kind of like separate, and then something happens with Autumn's friend group after they graduate, and the rest is history. But I don't know, I don't remember what I rated this book. Also, I never told you what I rated Killjoy. I rated Killjoy 3 stars, and then I rated If You Had Been With Me 3.5 stars. Next, I read a romantic comedy. I don't have the physical copy because I borrowed it from somebody. But also this book I was disappointed. The only part I liked of it was the beginning. The other two parts, because it's split into like 3 sections, the other 2 parts I did not enjoy at all. I thought the main character was kind of annoying. And I don't know. It was just not enjoyable to me except for the beginning part. Basically, it is about a girl, Sally, who works on what is essentially SNL. I think it's called like the Night Owls or something, but it's literally SNL. And she's a writer, and the first section is just going through like a week at the show, and there's a guy who's the love interest, and he's like a musical guest that week. And so they kind of like talk and stuff, and she screws it up. And then the rest of the book, and the second section, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but I kind of wish someone spoiled this for me because I think I would have been better prepared. But the second part is COVID-19. Like, it literally goes through COVID-19. The first part takes place in 2018. The second part takes place in 2020. And I just didn't enjoy that. This video is probably going to get 5 because I just said the C word. I literally completely forgot that. Whatever. Doesn't matter. I don't even have that many followers, so who cares? Whatever. I don't care. Whatever. So yeah, I just didn't enjoy that book that much as I thought I was going to, and it kind of disappointed me because I've seen this book like raved about, and I just didn't like it. Like, I loved the first part. Everything else did not like. But that was, I gave 3 stars, and I gave If You Had Been With Me 3.5 stars. The Dare. Oh. Okay, so the next book was The Dare by Elle Kennedy. This was a little bit of a reread for me. I didn't finish it the first time, so I finished it this time. This is the last book in the Off-Campus series. Oh, last book in the Off-Campus and Briar U series. Like, the end of, like, all of it. Other than, like, the Legacy, obviously. But whatever. This is, like, the last, like, normal book. This is Taylor and Connor's book. Connor is a hockey player on the Briar U hockey team, and Taylor is a sorority girl. And so they meet at one of her sorority parties. One of her like sorority sisters dares her to ask out Connor to hook up with her, mostly just to be mean because Taylor's a little bit like of a plus size. And she asks Connor, and Connor just like goes along with it, and then they end up kind of like fake dating, and it's just really cute. And one thing I love about Elle Kennedy's writing is it's just so entertaining. Even if it's not always good, it's entertaining, and it really entertained me. And I gave that 3 stars. And then last book I read this month was Dare You to Hate Me. This was by B. Celeste. I don't know how I feel about this book. Like, I'm still like in between. I don't know. I just like the way that it was written. And then I found out she wrote Underneath the Sycamore Tree. And it just kind of like makes sense to me that she wrote Underneath the Sycamore Tree. What I know about it, I haven't read it. I don't know if I'm ever gonna read it because of things that I've heard about it. Sorry. No, thank you. No, thank you. But yeah, so that kind of made sense. I liked this, but I also didn't at the same time because the main character was kind of unlikable. Like, the main girl, she was a little unlikable, at least in like my viewpoint. But I loved the chemistry between the 2 main characters. So that was good, but like there was just other things I didn't really like. Anyways, this is about Aiden and Ivy. They are childhood best friends. Ivy has like a bad home life, so she kind of like hides with Aiden all the time. And then when she was 16, she decided to run away. She asked Aiden to go with her, and it's like, no, I have a football career, I don't want to. And then she's like, okay, whatever. So she leaves. 4 years later, they're at the same college, and he like kind of approaches her at the bakery that she works at. They start talking, whatever, blah blah blah. Things happen. I wasn't a huge fan of this book, but read it, I guess. I don't know. And this was 4 stars for me. Those are all the books I read this month, and that was a lot of books, and my foot is asleep. Ow. Those are a lot of books, and that is probably the most physical copies I've read in a month. Like, the past couple of months, I feel like I've been reading more books on my phone and on my Kindle than physical. But since I'm home, I'm like, I like reading physical books, and I have so many books on my physical TBR, and I keep buying books. So, yeah, whatever. Bye, guys. Love y'all. See you later.